A unique civilization arose in this part of East Africa, with what is now Ethiopia and Eritrea at its center, the Kingdom of Aksum. In its heyday in the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, it was described as one of the world's 4 greatest civilizations. The rulers of the Kingdom of Aksum controlled trade between Africa, Arabia, and India. And according to local tradition, Aksum was founded by the son of the legendary Queen of Sheba and is home to the sacred Ark of the Covenant. Ethiopia is also the birthplace of coffee, an enduring gift to a grateful world. Northern Ethiopia, not far from the border with Eritrea. When we examine the history of this region before, during and after the Kingdom of Aksum, it is the history of both Ethiopians and Eritreans today. The early morning mist in the highlands that make up some of the most dramatic landscape of both Ethiopia and Eritrea. This is southern Eritrea, which enjoys a long coastline on the Red Sea, a vital maritime route which helped establish this part of Africa as a hub of international trade throughout the millennia. This is one of the most beautiful, unspoilt stretches of the Red Sea coast. You can see from the clearness of the water that this is one of the last remaining unpolluted marine environments on the planet. I wonder what underwater secrets from the distant past it might harbour. To understand the rise of the ancient Kingdom of Aksum, we first have to delve further back into history to find out more about the people who laid the foundations for Aksum's greatness. We begin with the ancient land of Punt, which is in a region now known as the Horn of Africa. It was the ancient Egyptians who named it Puntland, which means the land of the gods. There's evidence the Egyptians traded with the people here some 3,500 years ago, arriving in their distinctive ships. There are records of voyages to Punt depicted in the temple of Queen Hatshepsut at Dar al-Bahri in Egypt. Punt was an important source of the gold that the Egyptians used to decorate their tombs. Jewelry, perfumes, and oils also formed much of this trade. If you spend some time with the coastal inhabitants of Eritrea today, you soon learn that the people here have never broken with their centuries-old tradition of trading across the Red Sea. The fact that most people in this part of the country can speak Arabic is testament to their links with other cultures. This strategic position on the Red Sea coast meant people from many civilizations of the ancient world interacted with the local inhabitants. However, it was not just trade that made this part of Africa attractive. At its closest point, the Arabian Peninsula lies just 25 kilometers from here on the Eritrean coast. In the first millennium BC, settlers came across the Red Sea from Saba in southwestern Arabia, which is part of modern-day Yemen. They came as traders and farmers in search of fertile land. The people of Saba came to be known as the Sabaeans. They exchanged ideas and skills with the locals. For instance, they developed new irrigation techniques which boosted crop yields, and they shared knowledge of how to manage cattle, sheep, and goats. In time, a port was established at Adulis, which became one of the most important trading centres on the Red Sea, though its location today is no longer on the coast, but about 7 kilometres inland.
These are some of the ruins of the port city of Adulis. It is now completely deserted, but this was once a thriving ancient port city, one of the greatest of its time.
By the standards of the ancient world, the inhabitants would have enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle. Some of the houses here would have been quite grand.
These are the remains of a house in the city. Nobody lives in the area anymore, but we do know that Adulis was once a prosperous urban centre. Much of the land in Adulis remains unexcavated, but archaeologists here in Eritrea are working to uncover evidence of its former glory.
Dr. Yosef Lipsikal is the director of the National Museum in the Eritrean capital Asmara, which has on display some of the artifacts found in Adulis.
You have two small columns that were found in Adulis. What would they have been?
I think they would have been part of a palace, access to the entrance of the palace, which made of marble, together with other piece of architecture that was found in Adulis.
Looking around your lovely museum, very striking that you have this Sphinx here. Where was that found, and what does it tell us about the indigenous culture of what is modern-day Eritrea?
The Sphinx was found in the southern part of Eritrea, in a place called Adigramatan, which is dated 9th century BC. As you see, it's a figure of the head of a woman and the body of a lion. And under it, you have a Sabian inscription. The inscription talks about that it was a sacrificial stone. When you see the Sphinx, you see the African component, the style of hair, the dressing. And this helps us to see, also to inspect the indigenous and endogenous culture. And it shows the relationship also with the neighboring countries, with Sudan and Nubia, because we know that there are many sphinxes in Egypt.
From Asmara, I'm travelling to the southwest of Eritrea to see more evidence of early civilizations in the country. High up in the mountains is a place rarely visited by outsiders, the site of Kaheto, which is near where the Sphinx in the museum was found. Rock art nearby shows that this area has been inhabited for some 7,000 years.
The sheer number of archaeological remains spread over a wide area at Kaheto suggests that there was once an important site in this region in ancient times. Very little is known about the society that was based here, but it's believed that there was once an independent settlement that thrived in this part of Eritrea for hundreds of years. This is known as the Temple of Mariam Wa'iro, and so far it's the most important site to be excavated here at Kaheto. You can see the four columns, a mass of fallen stones and pillars, and the remains of a wall. It's believed to have been a place of worship.
My guide Suleiman Omar, who accompanies me to Kaheto, wants to demonstrate to me with the stamp of his feet why archaeologists believe there is much more yet to be excavated at the site.
So he's making this kind of hollow sound, and he's saying that underneath here there are believed to be some more archaeological remains that need to be excavated. Looks like you're doing a... Hey! It's a bit like a dance. محل.
حتى هناك وهناك.
So Suleiman's telling me that across Kaheto there are like 27 sites where they're excavating, and really it does cover a big area of land. So clearly, at some stage, there must have been a society that really flourished here in this part of Eritrea, and it seems to me that it's a story that's being uncovered.
Eritrea gained its independence in the early 1990s, so it's playing catch-up with tracing its own past.
One gets the impression that excavations are being made all the time in Eritrea, and you're discovering more and more of your history.
Yes, and we're trying to find also an alternative history of Eritrea, together with the new findings, of an indigenous and endogenous culture also. This helps us to construct the ancient history of Eritrea.
Eritrea, of course, was a part of the Aksumite kingdom, and a very critical part because it has the port of Massawa today, but Adulis in the ancient world, and that gave, of course, the Aksumite kingdom access to the Red Sea and vital trade routes.
Most of the sites, which you find in Eritrea, as well as in Ethiopia, were, Aksumite, But we have found that there are about 70% of the Eritrean sites are pre-Aksumite. In Adulis, for example, we have found a pre-Aksumite site, which we call Adulite, because of the architecture, which is definitely different. So most of these sites, we think they are the precursors of the Aksumite civilization.
The various societies which lived both inland at Kaheto and on the coast at Adulis must have interacted with one another, even if they were distinct communities. Archaeologists and historians are trying to find the links between the two, but it's clear Kaheto would have been an important stop-off point on the caravan route to the sea. As time went on, these different groups of people mixed with the Sabaeans, who had migrated from across the Red Sea. The Sabaeans brought with them their own cultural practices, though of course they were also themselves influenced by the locals. Travel to the northeast of Ethiopia and outside the city of Aksum at a site called Yeha, you'll find remains from this period. It's believed that about 500 BCE there was a kingdom here called Damat.
This monumental structure is believed to be the palace at Yeha, where the rulers of the kingdom of Damat lived. The palace has deteriorated badly, but you can still see the remains of square pillars. It was in this complex of buildings that a throne of carved limestone and a small statue of a seated figure were found. These are now both on display at the National Museum in Addis Ababa.
Near the palace is a temple, which when I visit is being renovated. The Sabaeans spoke their own language, Sabaean, which in time mixed with the local tongue and gave rise to a new language called Gez. This evolved into the Amharic and Tigrayan of Ethiopia and Eritrea today, languages which, with some modifications, have been written since about 700 BCE. This Ethiopian musician, Sete Zabegna, is singing in Amharic. The fusion of cultures created the foundations for the emergence of the Kingdom of Aksum, which lasted from around the 1st century for 1,000 years.
Between 183 and 213 AD, the Aksumites crossed the Red Sea, invaded South Arabia, and conquered the coastal parts of the land of the Sabaeans.
This showed how strong the kingdom had become. This is the major city in northern Ethiopia today that's called Aksum. It's one of the oldest continuously inhabited places in Africa. And if you visit it, you immediately get a sense of its historic significance. The first recorded king of the Aksumite kingdom was Zoscheles, but he's been totally eclipsed by an altogether more romantic tale of the kingdom's origins. Legend has it that the Queen of Sheba travelled from Aksum to Judah in the modern-day Middle East to visit King Solomon, renowned for his wisdom. According to the Bible, she arrived in Jerusalem with a large retinue, camels bearing spices, gold, and precious stones. The story of Sheba and Solomon is related in a book called the Kebra Nagast, meaning the glory of the kings.
It's a compilation of legends and traditions put together mostly in the late 13th and early 14th centuries by monks. Some accounts are historical and others purely derived from folklore, but many Ethiopians today accept it as historical fact.
According to the Kebra Nagast, the Queen of Sheba gave birth to King Solomon's son, who became King Menelik I, and it was he who was the first ruler of the Aksumite kingdom. The powerful grip that the story of Sheba has on many is evident to this day. Princess Mariam, eldest granddaughter of the last emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, takes up the story of the Queen of Sheba, from whom she believes the Ethiopian royal family is descended.
To me, the Queen of Sheba presents a strong lady who was intelligent enough to realize she was young. Because she was young, she wanted to learn about Solomon's wisdom. And this shows her organization ability to take all those treasures to him and to get his advice on how to govern her country. From that angle, I admire her. I think she was forward-looking, in a sense, to learn, to educate herself, and I give her credit for all that.
About 30 kilometers outside of Aksum, at the site of Dungur, and seemingly in the middle of nowhere, you find clear remains of a substantial building dating back to the Aksumite era.
According to local tradition, this stone structure behind me is the palace of the Queen of Sheba. In truth, it is more likely to be a castle dating back to the 7th century that was the home of a noble Aksumite family. But regardless of what the historians say, local guides here will tell any visitor that this is where the Queen of Sheba lived.
It's got a very special atmosphere. It takes you back and you think of all the traveling she made and the way they brought back the wisdom from Solomon and passed it on from generation to generation.
If the Queen of Sheba was King Solomon's contemporary, she would have been alive 3 centuries before this castle at Dungur was built. But why let a discrepancy of just 300 years ruin a good story? Putting aside the debate of who actually lived in the palace, what do we know about it?
The site here at Dungur is the finest example of Aksumite architecture still standing today. There are about 40 rooms in the castle. There's a kitchen with large brick ovens, rooms with bathing facilities, and all this shows that Aksum was a thriving urban centre of the ancient world.
The castle at Dungur is believed to have been a nobleman's house, and it's not the only one. At the museum in Aksum, there's a model of the Ta'aka Mariam Palace, a square building with 4 towers set in a courtyard surrounded by many rooms.
This is the design of one of the Aksumite palaces. That's the model of Ta'aka Mariam Palace. It's dated to 5th up to 6th century AD. This palace is the biggest one in the history of the Aksumite kingdom.
And why can we not see the site? Because
for the time being, is under excavation. That's why we prepare for the time this model. But this was examined in 1906 by the German archaeologists. So at that time, they found, most of ground plus one, the half of the palace.
So tell me, the famous site at Dungur, which local tradition says is the palace of the Queen of Sheba, would it have looked like this?
Yes. Most of the Aksumite palaces already had this typical architectural design.
So there would have been bedrooms, bathrooms,
Yeah. Already.
kitchens.
Yes, already it looks this one.
It would have been very impressive then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you believe that the site at Dungur is the palace of the Queen of Sheba?
Yes.
100%?
Yeah.
There's another part of Sheba's story which also has deep significance for Ethiopians and is as vibrant in their culture today as it has been throughout the centuries. Tradition holds that the first emperor of the Aksumite kingdom, Menelik I, the son of Sheba and Solomon, took from Jerusalem to Aksum one of the most sacred artifacts of Judaism, the Ark of the Covenant. I make my way along the wide streets of Aksum to the location by the city's main church where the Ark is supposed to be kept and guarded by a monk.
Ethiopian Christians believe that locked away inside this small outbuilding behind me, just by the Church of Mary of Zion, is the sacred Ark of the Covenant brought here from Israel. According to biblical tradition, this contains the 10 commandments handed down to Moses by God. Inside, there lives a lone monk. He rarely ventures out, guarding at all times this sacred and precious treasure.
Patriarch Abuna Matthias is the head of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and he grants me a rare audience.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen.
I wanted to ask you about the legend of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, because, of course, it is believed that their son, Menelik, brought the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia, where it is just by the Church of Miriam of Zion. Do you have no doubt that the Ark of the Covenant is in there?
No doubt, yes.
Have you, as the patriarch, seen it?
Our forefathers saw it, but I am not yet. But everyone accepted the presence of the Ark of the Covenant is in Aksum. And so we believe strongly that the Ark of the Covenant is here in Aksum.
In time, Christianity became an integral part of the Kingdom of Aksum, and its assumed possession of the Ark of the Covenant meant Aksum regarded itself as a religious hub. Christianity also allowed Aksum's rulers to bolster their authority. But just as with earlier civilizations, it was trade that provided them with their lifeblood.
Go to any market anywhere in Ethiopia today, and it's pretty certain that you will find frankincense like this. Along with myrrh, gold, and ivory, these were the precious exports that helped cement the rise of the Kingdom of Aksum.
The evidence of international trade is clear, for example, from these museum objects. Goods from India and the Mediterranean made their way to the Kingdom of Aksum.
Very beautiful, decorated, I suppose they're wine glasses.
Yes. So this is already 4th century goblet glasses, and The glass is already probably imported, especially from Roman Empire, and maybe also made in Aksum.
And I spot some rather interesting-looking human-headed jars also from Aksum.
Pottery product was already very famous in Aksumite time. So this was a jar, especially to offer traditional drink for the elites. And from this pottery, we can understand, especially the hairdoing style of Aksumite women. If you look this one.
Their hairstyle, it was kind of flicked up,
Yeah.
a bit like mine.
No. No, I will tell you about that culture already. Still, our mothers, they do that one, their hair.
Do you do it sometimes?
Yeah, especially in the holiday. Yeah.
It looks very attractive. I might try it myself.
Trade is still in the blood of many who live in the highlands of Ethiopia today. Futsum Bazen is a snazzily dressed middle-aged man with skill and charm in equal measure. He sells traditional artifacts and handicrafts to Ethiopians as well as any passing visitor at his shop in the center of Aksum city. Futsum decides to call it a day. After a short walk, Futsum is home and is greeted by his wife, daughters and in-laws, plus a friend who's dropped by. First, Futsum checks one of his daughter's homework.
Hello. Hello, Futsu. Thank you very much indeed. Please don't stand. Hello. Oh, wow. Hello. Hi. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Oh, your wife. Hello. Very nice to meet you. Hello. Very nice to meet you. You are from one of the old families here in Aksum.
Yes, sir. Yes. You are right. My father is a priest.
Your father?
I can show you my photo.
Yes, your father is a priest.
Yes, father.
And your wife too, and also Salama, your family is from Aksum, and it has yes, for generations.
Yes, Aksum.
Oh, this is your father.
Futsum's family embodies the twin ancient traditions of Aksum, religion and trade.
So your grandfather was also a priest. I see, and you have a marvellous cross that you're wearing here. So you sell these crosses in your shop? A different one. This is a special one.
I have 5, 6 kinds.
Beautiful, isn't it? And I noticed that your relative here and your relative there have got amazing hairstyles. This is the traditional hairstyle of the women of Aksum. I like your hairstyle.
It's finished. Finished.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist saying that. I like his hair.
Ethiopians, like so many Africans, are renowned for their hospitality, and I'm treated to a traditional meal. Well, no meal is complete without the staple flat sour pancake called injera. It's produced from flour made from a grain called teff, which has been grown here for centuries.
Oh, you have to kiss the injera. Yeah. It's like thanking God for food.
It's eaten with a spiced sauce, which usually includes meat, and is washed down with beer.
You feed your wife. Oh, I see.
Yes.
Giving somebody a mouthful of food by hand is a sign of love in Ethiopia.
Very nice. Your wife made this, yes? Very nice. Delicious. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. So drink coffee.
Oh, coffee. Very important
Yeah.
for families.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially in Aksum, 3 times. Morning, afternoon, and after 10.
After 10 o'clock.
Coffee is not just a drink here, it's a ritual. The red berries that give us coffee beans grow wild in Ethiopia, and coffee has been drunk here for many centuries. Today, the berries are cultivated and coffee is a major industry. The beans are roasted over hot coals, then carried around the room for everyone to savour the scent. Afterwards, they're ground with a mortar and pestle. The coffee is brewed in a clay pot called a jabana, which keeps it warm. The small china cups make the drinking of coffee altogether a rather delicate affair.
It's very nice. Really, really nice.
Futsum had enjoyed a good week in his shop, and no doubt this, along with a bit of encouragement from honey wine and beer, has put them in a very merry mood. Traders like Futsum would have used currency hundreds of years ago in Aksum. In fact, Aksum was one of the earliest states in Africa to mint its own gold, silver, and copper coins. King Endibis was the first to introduce coins in the second half of the 3rd century AD. And some of our information about the kings of Aksum comes from these coins. One of the best known and most powerful of the kings was Ezana, seen here on this coin. He ruled in the 4th century.
King Adana claimed the title of King of Kings for the first time. When we say King of Kings, it is clear indication that there had several kings under him. Because of the trade interruption in the Sudan, he campaigned as far as Marwe to punish the people who interrupted the trade, and he was successful in destroying the town of Marwe. That also indicates his greatness, that he had influence over the Sudan, over the South Arabian kingdoms, and of the Horn of Africa. Besides, the very fact that he controlled the 2 sides of the Red Sea, that makes him great king.
And what do we know about him as a person?
King Azana was a despotic ruler because he punished any rebel in the Horn of Africa. Whenever there was rebellion, no matter for what reason, Azana had to campaign against them in order to punish them. Again, when he was a pagan, he sacrificed human beings, about 50 human beings, to satisfy his god.
Human sacrifices notwithstanding, it seems King Ezana had a dramatic change of heart. Towards the end of his reign, around 350 AD, Ezana adopted Christianity, as documented in the Ezana stone. It was Ezana who made Christianity the official religion of Aksum.
After Ezana became a Christian, there are indications of behavioral change. The rebels might have continued after that. He went on campaign to punish the people, but he did not seem to have been harsh as he was before to kill people, because he did whatever he had done in the name of God. He says, I believe in my God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I believe in Jesus Christ. This clearly indicates that his behavior was according to a Christian person or individual.
So was he a reformed character when he became a Christian?
Indeed.
He stopped sacrificing people?
It seems never mention of sacrifice.
Stopped being a despot?
Yeah. Go ahead.
When Ezana died, this stela, now supported with a bit of help from modern technology, was erected in his memory. The distinctive monumental feature of these narrow stelae was how the rulers marked their tombs. They were built from solid stone and are believed to date from around 300 AD. Christianity spread in Aksum because it was followed by the elite. Ezana's official adoption of the religion was consolidated by the work of monks known as the Nine Saints, who still have an important place in Ethiopian Christianity today. The Nine Saints came from different parts of the Byzantine Empire, which grew out of the remains of the Roman Empire around the eastern end of the Mediterranean. The Emperor Constantine made Byzantium in modern-day Turkey his capital in the early 4th century AD. From there, he ruled over territory covering a wide expanse of Europe and Asia. The Byzantines didn't seek to defeat Aksum and were indeed on friendly terms with it. So the 9 Byzantine priests arrived safely in Aksum to spread the Christian faith.
These are the ruins of a church dating back to the 5th century, which have been found in Adulis in Eritrea. It's from the Byzantine era and measures about 18 by 10 square meters. We know it's a church because crosses have been found here.
Once they arrived on the coast, the 9 saints went further inland through the highlands to preach the gospel.
This site east of Aksum, where this modern church stands today, is the exact location where a church was established by one of the 9 saints. The 9 saints are some of the most iconic figures in the history of the Orthodox Church in Ethiopia, and there is still a strong cult of worship around them today.
The priest at the church shows me one of the oldest Bibles in Ethiopia written in Ge'ez. It's at least 1,000 years old. We can't bring the TV camera inside because it has to be kept in the dark. Aksum is the spiritual home of Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity, even if the patriarch of the Orthodox Church lives in his magnificent official residence in the capital, Addis Ababa.
What was the significance of the 9 saints? Because, for example, they introduced the tradition of monasticism to Ethiopia. If you could explain to us their significance, please.
Well, they were monks, so they were teaching, they were writing books and translating from other languages, from Arabic, and also opening the monastic life for Ethiopia.
The tradition of monasteries and nunneries has really persisted greatly to this day. There are many monks and nuns in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Why it is something which has become so embedded in your practice?
Yeah, the monastic life, male and female monks are very important for religious purposes. So they teach, they keep their responsibility just for the church, not for other things.
Also, in all pictures of Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ is always depicted as brown-skinned with soft African hair, really, because that's very different from how he is depicted in European paintings.
Well, of course, some people do the Ethiopian face. They make the picture like their own people. For example, in the Caribbean, the Caribbean islands make like their own face, dark color. But we believe that Jesus Christ is born from Jews, these white people. It's not important to change the face, the whiteness. So.
But you're surrounded by paintings of both Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary looking like Ethiopians, brown with a soft afro.
They do people, but Saint Mary also is Israelite, so it's not very important to change the face of our Lord Jesus Christ and Saint Mary, because they are Jews. They are Jewish.
Patriarch Abuna Matthias presides over key services like this one at the Ethiopian Orthodox Christmas at the Holy Trinity Church in Addis Ababa. The most holy item in every Ethiopian Orthodox church is the tabot, a supposed replica of the Ark of the Covenant. It's covered at all times by a draped sheet. With Christianity as its official religion and its ordered hierarchical civil structure, Aksum enjoyed a long period of prosperity and prestige. It had also become a strong military power in the region. The army protected the empire's trade interests and upheld its reputation as a powerful Christian kingdom. Around 520 AD, disturbed by clashes between Christians and Jews in South Arabia, King Caleb of Aksum sent an army across the waters of the Red Sea to South Arabia and defeated the Jews there. According to the Kebre Nagast, after defeating the Jews of Arabia, King Caleb returned to Aksum, gave up his throne, and spent his life in a monastery. However, another account states that he reigned in Aksum for a further 17 years. The Kingdom of Aksum must stand not only as one of the greatest civilizations of Africa, but also of the ancient world. Hundreds of years before Christ, various settlements in what is today Ethiopia and Eritrea were established. Advanced societies that laid the foundations for a great military and religious power. Civilizations which used a written language and coinage, where fine buildings and monuments were erected, where sophisticated goods were made and traded, a unique African civilization. As we've seen, the official adoption of Christianity by Aksum's kings and the urban elite meant that at times there were tensions between them and the Jews of Arabia. Later, the Aksumites would have to deal with the emergence of another religion, Islam. In the next program, we'll see how the Christians, Jews, and Muslims in this part of Africa coexisted, and how in time Aksum's decline gave rise to new Christian and Islamic kingdoms.